What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel, sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. What's going on, everybody? Once again, Steven Hyder, Gate City Sports Channel. If you're new to my channel, if y'all can do me a huge favor, guys, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You have no clue much that it helps. It's greatly appreciated. And I love every one of y'all that go ahead and subscribe to the channel, guys, because it means a lot, man. It gives me an audience to talk to. Number two, all my OGs, if y'all want to help out, you already know what to do, guys. Hit that like button. That's what communicates with YouTube. Lets YouTube know that we're having interactions here. And in return, YouTube will press or push this content out across the platform. All right, y'all. Let's jump into today's topic. Look, guys, I'm going to give you my top 10. These are the top 10 corners that I've identified in the NFL draft. I'm still working through some of this, so there might be some changes in what I think about some of these people as I see more, Senior Bowl week film, as I see them go through the combine, I see the pro days, as I get a chance to watch more film on them. I may change my mind on some of the interpretation I have. But today, I'm going to get into some of my, original or first thoughts about the cornerback position in this draft. And I think it's a little deeper than some people think, but I will say this. If you don't get one by the end of the third round, yeah, you might be in for a long-term kind of developmental project, and it could get a little iffy. All right, y'all. Let's get to today's content.
With the 22nd pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
All right. So there's a lot of different ways of analyzing the draft and analyzing these prospects. And when it comes to the corner, I like to divide things up by, number one, looking outside versus inside players. Number two, then I like to break it up by, man concept versus zone concepts. And then number three, I like to dig a little further because man concept is a pretty broad statement to make. So then I'm kind of breaking up versus like man press versus off coverage man, those kind of concepts in between. And then I kind of divide it up then by what I think the value is of each player, whether I think these are truly first round talents, second round talents, third, you get what I'm saying, so forth and so forth. That's the way that I like to analyze them. So there are 10 players that I think are kind of have legitimate shots. I'm not going to say they're surefire. No one is surefire in the draft. But these 10 players I think have legitimate shots of sticking around the NFL for a minimum of at least 4 years, I think. I think they'll be in league for at least 4 years. And I would say that Jeffrey Okudah, I don't know how you say his name, guys. You know what I'm talking about, though. Kristian Fulton, C.J. Henderson, Trevon Diggs, Paulson Adebo, Jeff Gladney, Damon Arnette, A.J. Terrell, Jaylon Johnson, and Bryce Hall are the 10 players I think clearly have first through third round evaluations on them. These are guys that if you can get in the first 3 rounds of the draft, there might be something there depending on scheme fit, if you can develop the talent, all that. All this kind of plays into it. But I think those 10 players in particular are good football players.
Man coverage is the coverage that everybody wants to play, but not everybody is capable of playing.
To start with, I do believe that this draft in particular is a good draft for the long, lanky, closing windows on quarterbacks type corner play. We have a lot of really good man corners in this draft. That's where I think you can go pretty deep is on the man corners. It's a little harder if you're trying to play zone. Now, there are some guys within the man concept that they can play a little zone, but it's still kind of it's like a cover 3 type zone where there's still a man responsibility, but they're zoning a particular part of the field in that man coverage, if that makes sense. So to me, there's 6 guys of those that I named that are more the man leaning type. You got, Kristian Fulton, C.J. Henderson. You have Paulson Adebo, Damon Arnette, Jaylon Johnson, and A.J. Terrell. Now, like I said, some of these guys can play zone as well, but they're better suited for man. I will say this, that C.J. Henderson is one of the more versatile guys when it comes to being able to play both. He's a guy that I would definitely be interested in finding. And on the flip side, I think Kristian Fulton has a little bit of that ability as well. But on the flip side, if you look at the guys I would consider to be primarily zone, I think Trevon Diggs and Bryce Hall are the other opposing guys that I would say are zones, but still have the ability to play man as well. But like I said, in man, Kristian Fulton, C.J. Henderson, Paulson Adebo, Damon Arnette, Jaylon Johnson, A.J. Terrell.
Zone defense allows defensive backs to have their eyes on the quarterback, not on the receiver.
All right, so zone coverage quarterbacks in this draft. Generally speaking, when you're playing the zone, it's a soft cushion. So you really need to have a guy who can read and react, who really understands the receiver's route tree, understands how to read a quarterback's eyes, and is very, very comfortable and familiar with playing within the system in the scheme. Generally speaking, guys, when you're playing in a zone, you want guys who have very good footwork, right? People who are on the tip, they're not on the balls of their feet, or they're not on their heels of their feet. They're on the balls of their feet, right? And they have very good change of direction, right? So they can get in and out. If you need to, so if you're playing a cover 3, then you will need a guy who has that good, hip twist, that good hip rotation. But generally speaking, you're looking at change of direction and good footwork for zone, while man is definitely more of the fluid hip thing, the ability to flip and turn and run with the guy. So there's some slight differences there between the two. There are 3 zone corners that I can, like I said, there are other guys who can play zone. I'm not saying they're not, but these are 3 guys that are the strongest in zone, which would be Trevon Diggs, Jeff Gladney, and Bryce Hall. Those are the 3 guys from this draft that I feel comfortable with saying are pretty adequate zone concept defenders. If we were to take a look, one of the really easy ways of predicting how much zone people are playing is by taking a look at, interception rates. You're going to have more opportunities to pick the ball off in zone than you will in man. Man concepts, you might see more people with past, defenses. So they'll get their hands up and they'll knock the ball away. So they'll have that. But it's much harder to play the quarterback's eyes. It's much harder to play the ball if you're in man. There's a lot of illusion that goes around there because sometimes people look at man defenders and say like, oh, they don't have very good ball skills. Well, that's not necessarily true. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but really and honestly, it has more to do with scheme fit than their ability to actually play the ball in the air. So, there's all these different types of things to look at, guys, when you're evaluating corners.
When you're running zone coverage, you do see a higher interception rate.
All right. If I can be honest, if we're talking about my grades on these corners, I'm going to be real with you. Right now, without seeing the Senior Bowl, without seeing the Combine, the Pro Days, getting more extensive into film, I've watched a little bit of film, guys, but to make predictions like this, guys, you need to watch a lot of film. And then you kind of it's almost impossible to predict some of this because we don't have access to the front office the way that other, agencies do to get a feel for, all we can do is really pay attention to who they're bringing in, who they're interviewing, and then try to hear and see what's coming down the line from reports where the Eagles' interests lie. So 4 players I would give a first round grade to right now. So Jeffrey Okudah, I don't know how you say his name, guys, but clearly he's a top 10 pick. Kristian Fulton, C.J. Henderson, Trevon Diggs. Those are the 4 guys I would give first round pick, value to. So what do I think about some of these other guys? Because there are some big names on here. Some guys that are rated in the top 30 that I think teams would be reaching if they took them in the first round. Paulson Adebo. I like Paulson Adebo. I think there's definitely skill there. He's still development. He's not all the way figured out, guys. He really has very good ball skills, but he needs to work on his footwork big time in press coverage. He's not there yet, in my opinion. Not for a first round pick. Past Paulson Adebo, you have guys like Jeff Gladney. Jeff Gladney is one of these zone guys. I don't know how I feel about a guy coming out of TCU. That was just not a very good defensive football team. I really need to see more film to feel comfortable projecting that guy to the first round. I would be more comfortable with him in the second, maybe even third round. Damon Arnette. I think Damon Arnette actually has some intrigue late in the first round, but I still think Damon Arnette might be more of a early second round kind of guy. The reason I like Damon Arnette is that he's very versatile. This guy can play zone, he can play man. Outside of maybe Bryce Hall, Damon Arnette, C.J. Henderson, Trevon Diggs, there's only a few of these guys that have that kind of ability to probably play both. So past him, you have Bryce Hall. I think Bryce Hall is a later second, earlier third, in my opinion. They do have him as a top 30, so you might have to get him by the middle of the second round to get him. Just to, it depends, man. Sometimes teams go on crazy runs on certain positions because there's only probably 10, 12 defensive backs. I think teams will feel comfortable projecting to be like solid contributors in the NFL. They could start a run on them, so you got to be wary of that kind of thing. And then you guys like Jaylon Johnson. Jaylon Johnson, me personally, I like the kid, but he's really one dimensional in terms of being a man coverage kind of guy. He's better in the press. I don't like him at all in zone. So he might be a guy that has to slide down. Now, you do have guys like AJ Terrell, who's also press man, like he's a press cover. I think he's got a little more abilities to play inside zone concepts or off coverage, but still not quite great there. He's another guy that says late second, early third. Now, guys, I'm not really counting nickel backs just because I'm not really looking for nickels. So you can mix in a handful of nickel backs that might also keep teams from going on serious runs. But this is my concern, guys. It wouldn't surprise me to see teams go into crazy runs in this draft.
Also see a lower touchdown rate because those guys are designed to take away the deep pass.
If you were to ask me, well, who would you take, Steve? I mean, to me, it's really hard to say this, guys, because we don't even know who the hell the defensive back coach is. Without knowing who the defensive back coach is, I don't really have a great feel on what the Eagles are going to do in free agency because there is a decent mix between man and zone corners in free agency as well. And until I kind of have a feel for what we want to run, it's hard to project. Now, there are a couple of people I could say that if we don't go receiver in the first round, I feel like it's because a guy like Kristian Fulton or CJ Henderson slid. If there is a run on wide receivers and we just, now you're stuck with guys that are probably late first, second round values, kind of that area of the wide receiver core, then I could see the Eagles maybe taking, a guy like, Trevon Diggs, because Trevon Diggs, while he's more of a zone guy, he can still play man. So even if you're in a man concept, like he can kind of come around to it. So, like I said, if you see a guy like Kristian Fulton or CJ Henderson start sliding down the board and we're sitting there at 21 and we get past 15 and 16, and all of a sudden they're still on the board, I could definitely see the Eagles moving up for a player like that. We're sitting there at 21. There's been a run on wide receivers and we can't locate the guy we want. Then I could see the Eagles possibly then going and taking Trevon Diggs. But like I said, without really knowing the concepts we're going to run and feeling secure in that prediction, guys, it gets really hard if we're starting to project the second, third round, even later, guys. Because then if you're asking me that, I got to know, because I would have to know if we're going to be running man or zone, because then we could be talking about, Paulson Adebo or, Damon Arnette versus guys like, Jeff Gladney and Bryce Hall. It depends on the concepts we're going to be running. I mean, I do think Bryce Hall gives you a little more flexibility to be able to play both man and zone, just like I think, a guy like Damon Arnette gives you that capability. So I can see those two guys still being definite targets in the second round if they're still hanging around there. There's a lot. I could even go deep on you guys. There's a couple of guys I like deep and late in this draft, guys. People like Troy Pride Jr. out of Notre Dame. I want to watch more film of him, but that's a guy that if we start getting into the fifth round and there's a guy like Troy Pride Jr. there, I'd take a waiver. I'd take a chance on a guy like that to develop. Stanford Samuels III, Asante Samuel's son. If you're getting deep in the draft and that guy's still around, that's a guy that I think actually has talent. I would take a shot on a guy like that. So, I mean, there are a couple of talented guys that could slide deep into this draft late. I shouldn't say deep, but late into this draft. But I could also see teams, like I said, going on major runs on corners, and now you got guys like Troy Pride Jr. and Stanford Samuels. They could easily go anywhere from the fifth round to the freaking third round, depending on where the run on corner starts. So it's really hard to predict this stuff, guys. All right, y'all. Listen, as we go forward, what I'm going to do is I will actually break down what I think about certain players. All right, so I'll break down film on Kristian Fulton. I'll break down the scouting reports for you guys on Kristian Fulton, CJ Henderson, right? I'll do things like that on Trevon Diggs and Bryce Hall and Damon Arnette, like the guys I really think are true contenders. It's hard to do them all in a video like this, guys, because just that video would be ridiculously long. But these are the guys I'm thinking. If I left someone off your list that you are like, yo, yo, Gate City, what the heck, man? You left this guy off. Let me know. I'll check him out, and I'll let you know my thoughts on him. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out here. You know what time it is. EAGLES. I'll say this. We need corner and secondary help, and it's got to happen between free agency and the draft. I'm going to be real with you. I think you got to address it in both. I think you got to address it in both, to be honest.